If you have an ecosystem of products and services and partnerships that you build with your show at the foundation, that's how you really elevate your income. And what I recognized was because since 2013, I've been landing corporate contracts and corporate sponsors and teaching business owners how to do the same.
Most hosts never achieve the results they hoped for. They're falling short on listenership and monetization, meaning their message isn't being heard and their show ends up costing them money. This podcast was created to help you grow your listenership and make money while you're at it. Get ready to take notes. Here's your host, Adam Adams.
Hey, podcaster, it's your host, Adam Adams. And today we are with Shayna Davis, who hosts a podcast that you might be interested in. And I don't say that about other guests. I don't know if I've ever said it. But why am I saying it now is because it directly impacts what you're doing. Because the listener of this show, you, are probably a business owner. You're probably somebody who wants to get in front of more people. You're probably somebody who wants to make life easier on yourself to make more money in your business. Her podcast is called The Influence Economy, and she is an expert on helping people get in front of the right people, speak directly to the right person. And we're going to talk about that a lot in today's episode. In this episode, I actually want you to listen to multiple episodes at a time. So I'm not going to say today's episode because you're going to listen to more than one today. All right, Shayna, you've got a podcast that is doing really, really well. You're in the top 3% when it comes to, I think, Listen Notes ranks you there. When it comes to your amount of ratings and reviews, you're in the top 10% of all podcasters out there. So I want to talk about what got you there. How did you get yourself into a position where you're getting noticed? Because I think that'll really be beneficial for the listener.
Absolutely. Well, what's interesting, Adam, is that I don't know when I got to that point. In 2023, I think it was, I had decided that I wasn't going to do my podcast anymore. I was like, this is too much work. I don't really want to do this anymore. And I was speaking at a podcast conference and they had an award show and it was a relatively good sized event. And I won, if you can see over my shoulder, if you're watching the video, there's an award over my shoulder that I won Best Female Host of all of 2023. And I was like, what? And not that I didn't think that I was a good interviewer, but I didn't think I was going to win that award out of the people that I was up against. And so I came home and then people started talking about like, oh, my show is ranked here and my show is ranked there. And I was like, that's a thing. Like there's tools out there. And that's when I discovered that the show was actually doing really well. So I can tell you some of the things that I've done that I think helped get it there, but it's hard for me to pinpoint exactly since I don't know when I got there. But a couple of the things that I have done is number one, I shortened the length of my show. Because just like our credit scores are made up of like, oh, 30% of your credit score is based off of this and 35% of your credit score is based off of that. What I learned is that the longer people are listening to your episodes, the podcasting algorithm gods don't think your content is good if people aren't getting all the way through it. Well, what I realized is that I didn't think that that was the case because I was getting rave reviews and people were telling me like, how good it was and how much it was impacting their lives. But I just realized nobody had time to listen to the length of show that I was recording. So one of the things that I did was I shortened the length of my show. I was consistent, obviously, because that's, one of the things that they tell you how to do is to be consistent. But I think the best thing that I did is that I didn't decide for my listeners what it was that they wanted to hear. I actually did deep research on what it was that they wanted and needed. And I asked a good number of people that I considered to be the type of audience that I was wanting to reach exactly what it was that they wanted to hear. What did they feel like they were not hearing? And what it was that they really thought was going to move the needle in their business and in their lives. And I noticed a sharp trajectory up once I started to do those things instead of just like, here's what I think they should have. This is what I think they should listen to.
Yeah. Okay. So those are the three main things. Is there anything else you can think of that we should delve into?
Absolutely. I started focusing on how do you use your podcast to monetize in a way beyond what the gurus are telling you. And I recognize that so many podcast hosts specifically, because I have a guiding belief, Adam, and that belief is that if you have a message, you should have a podcast. But I also believe that a podcast without a business model is just a hobby. And so many podcasters are living beneath their profit potential because the gurus are telling them that the way that you monetize your show is sell some merchandise, have some affiliate links, get a $250 ad spot. And I think that that's stepping over dollars to get to dimes. I think that the same message that you have, the same area of expertise that you are highlighting in your show, that you should be using that to land higher value activities like corporate contracts, like corporate sponsors. Like, why would you want a $250 sponsor when you could get somebody to pay you $25,000 to come in and do a workshop for the same stuff that you're talking about on your show? So when I started doing that and I started telling podcasters, like, listen, you could make serious money from your show if you would just start looking at building an ecosystem around your show and recognizing that the business model that you grow around your show is really what's going to elevate your income. Now, when we started talking about that last year, that's when it was like, shh.
Okay. All right. These are good. So I'm going to go through the 4 things. You shortened the length of each episode. You stayed consistent. You didn't decide what the listener needed. You did research instead. And also you focused on how to use the podcast to monetize, and you taught that content, and other people gravitated toward that. My first question is going to the first piece that you said. You shortened the length of the show. I think it might be beneficial for our listener to understand that in a little bit more detail, what the length used to be and what you got it to. Did you go from 1 hour to 5 minutes? Did you go from 40 to 30? Why don't you share?
I was around 45 minutes originally, and now I'd keep my show to 20. Why is that important? Because if you think about the fact that we live in such an attention-driven world, we're busy, we're being drawn in 40 different directions. Many people that are listening to podcasts don't have 40 minutes. They don't have an hour. Somebody interviewed me for 2.5 hours last year. People don't have that amount of time to listen to stuff. And the audience tells me all the time, one of the things I love about your show is not just that I know that I'm going to get a tremendous amount of value. I know that I can actually get through the show while I'm on my way to the grocery store or whatever it is that I'm doing, because guess what? I don't have time to come back to it, even though I want to, and even though I tell myself I'm going to. And so now that I've decreased it to 20 minutes, and I'll tell you this, if I do a solo episode, sometimes those are 12 minutes, sometimes those are 15 minutes. But my interviews, I keep them to no more than 20 minutes.
Okay. Is it challenging to do that?
No, not if you know how to interview well and you know how to speak well and you know how to redirect your people when they start going on and on and on. It's not difficult. You have to practice becoming a good communicator. I think nowadays, just like social media makes everybody famous, these microphones makes everyone think that they're great communicators, and they're really not.
Okay. How do you do that then? How do you redirect, for example?
I just cut them off.
Give me an example. Okay, you're interviewing me. Ask me a question, and I'm going to start going off, and I want to hear how you do it.
Absolutely. So, Adam, I want you to tell me, how did you get started in this industry?
I started podcasting because I really wanted to get my voice out there. They said your network is your net worth, and I knew that this would be a way to get in front of tons and tons of people.
And what I really love about that, Adam, is what you just said to me. So I wait until you pause a little bit so that it doesn't sound like, oh my God, this girl is rude and she won't let him get a word in edgewise. And I usually don't do it like in the first or 2 questions, because I'm like, maybe, those questions take a little bit of context, a little bit more setup. But if we're into our second, third, fourth question and you're going on and on and on to the point that I asked the question and I don't even remember what we're talking about, I'm going to jump in, but I'm going to do it in a way that doesn't make you feel slighted. You're going to feel heard. You know what? I really love that you said that. And here's the other thing that I know. Can you unpack that a little bit? And then I'll cut you off the next time too, if I have to.
Okay. Very interesting. I think that might be beneficial to a lot of us. The second thing you mentioned was consistency. You mentioned that that was probably a big factor in the growth and for you to be ranked as the number one female podcaster, as well as getting ranked one of the top podcasts in the world, top percentages. So, talk to us about why is consistency important, and is there any tips that you have to help us be more consistent so we don't get behind the eight?
Yeah. I think as the host, consistency in having systems in place in your business and in your life is just the way to be more productive. If I was willy nilly, like, I'm going to record on a Thursday, I'm going to record one at a time, it would just be very difficult for me to get in a groove. But for your listeners, think about your favorite television program that that comes on every Thursday at 7 o'clock. Now, before streaming, we wanted to make sure we were in front of that television every Thursday at 7 o'clock. But even though we may be streaming it now and we may only be watching it on a Saturday, we know that every Saturday we're going to log on so that we can see the program that aired Thursday at 7 o'clock. And so if you want to create repeat listeners and you really want to create raving fans that are sharing your episodes and are actually expanding your reach for you, you want to give them something to look forward to. And if they go to look for another episode, like, oh my God, the last episode from Adam was amazing, and I don't ever know when Adam is going to have another one, they're going to find someone else that they feel like teaches what you teach, or they're going to try to find someone else to listen to. You're not going to be top of mind like your favorite programming would be if you're going to, if you were being a little bit more consistent.
So, why is consistency even important? Like, I have people coming to me. I'm going to set this up. And they say, I want to do a podcast, and I'll show them our packages. I'll show them that we can do 7 days a week, 5 days a week, 2 days a week, or even just one podcast per week. And they'll respond with, well, I only want to do one a month. I only want to do it every other week. Or, for example, I don't think I can commit to weekly. What happens if I miss one? Do you waive the fee that week? My response is that we need to do a minimum of one a week. I'm wondering how you feel about consistency, how often it should be. Share with our listener.
I think that, my mentor says you're always the CEO of YOU. You can do whatever you want to do, but that's not what's recommended. But I will say you also have to be realistic in picking the frequency that you know that you're going to be able to stick with. And so if you don't think you can stick with multiple times a week, pick what it is that you feel like you can do that is feasible for you to do, but then you have to stick with that and you have to be consistent. I only release one episode a week. I record more than one a week, but
Wait, say that again.
I
Slower.
record multiple episodes per week, but I only release one episode per week. But whatever
makes
you're
me
gonna
think
pick,
of finances.
yeah,
There's a lot of people that live paycheck to paycheck, and it's stressful. I know the feeling of being like, okay, rent's going to be due, and I hope my paycheck on Friday is going to be big enough to cover it. And I know the feeling of having a year's worth of expenses sitting there in the bank. And I know I hate one, and the other one feels very peaceful and liberating. You're talking about recording more than one episode each week, even though you only publish one. Go into more detail.
absolutely. By July 1st of every year, I've recorded every single episode that I'm going to release for the year because I batch record. This is my third interview today. This one happens to be with you, but I've already recorded 2 of my own today. And that gives me so much liberty because then I'm not trying to find time in my week to do one more thing, especially because as a girl and as a girly girl, I need to have on my makeup. I need to have on my jewelry. My clothes have to be on point. And there's some days that I know that there's no way that I'm going to feel like doing that every single day of the week. And so again, be consistent in whatever way that works for you. But I think the way that you're going to want to continue to do your podcast is to find multiple ways that you can streamline ways that you can find guests, streamline the ways that you're recording your show. I do everything in my business in batches. If it's sales calls, I do them in batches. I'm not jumping from this thing to that thing because then it's very difficult to be effective, even if you can be consistent with that. So, yes, record multiple, but release them on whatever schedule it is that you choose.
I
You don't have
agree.
to be everywhere at the same time.
With me and sales calls, sometimes it takes me 2 or 3 or at least 1 call to feel like I'm in the groove.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're like, "I don't wanna do it. I don't think I can do it. I don't know if anyone's gonna buy from me." And so you hold back. And if you only did 1 and it didn't get your jitters out, and then the next day you only did 1, you would never be able to get it out. But that first one seems to, okay, this is what I did right, this is what I did wrong, and how I can fix it. Then you call the next one, and you just get better and better. So I love that. I
And
love that idea.
research shows, Adam, that every time we switch to a completely different activity or we divert our attention to something else, I don't remember what the amount of time is, but it takes the brain a decent amount of time to really get into what it is that you just switched to. And so if you're constantly switching back and forth from one thing to the next in your day, you've actually lost more time because your brain is not firing as efficiently as it could, is if you would just stick to right now I'm recording my episodes. Right now I'm doing my invoices. Right now I'm doing whatever it is that your week consists of.
Yeah. I love that. And I don't remember the specific on it, but I think I've heard from people that it was like 3x wasted time
Yeah,
if you just get distracted even for a second and then come back to something. So if
agree.
you're trying to do 2 things, I've heard something like 3 times. So,
That sounds like what I remember too.
yeah. All right. The third thing you mentioned was the best thing that you did. And that was that you didn't decide for your listener, you did research. Our listener today wants to do the best thing. So they're wondering, how did you do the research? Where did you go to do the research? What did you do to find out what your avatar really wanted?
Absolutely. It's a little bit easier today because we have AI. But when I did it, I went to Ask the Public, I think is the name of the website.
Answer.
Yeah, Answer the Public. And I saw what Google was telling me. I also did a focus group. I knew who my target audience was, and I did a focus group with them, not on
How?
Zoom or anything like that, but I sent out a survey.
Okay.
And in the survey, I said, my podcast exists to help you fill in the blank with what your outcome is. Ask them, what are the 3 areas that you feel are keeping you the most stuck as it pertains to this? And then I ask it a different way and I ask them, what would be the top 3 episodes that you would not miss if I aired it? And then
Mm,
I looked at how those answers came in, and if there was one that was a complete outlier that I was like, "I don't even know why I would ever talk about this, I didn't do it." But what I recognized is that there was a lot of trends, and it just gives you so much more insight into what it is that they want and need. And the reason why I feel like that's so important is because as the expert, we know what it is that they really want, or we know what it is that they really need, but that's not always what they recognize that they need. And so what I did is that I took what it was that they told me they wanted. That's how I titled it and that's how I started it. But then I shifted to, but here's what I know. And then that's when I gave them what it is that they really need. Because if they knew what they needed, they wouldn't need me.
okay. So, for example, I'm a podcast coach, and a lot of people come and they want to do CPM model, which would mean that they would make $20 per 1,000 listeners. And if they're an average podcast, they probably have 90 listeners. So they'll probably make less than $2 per episode. So they would come to me saying, how do I monetize with this model? And I would start off my podcast episode with their question. How do you monetize with this model? I'm going to share that with you in this episode. Here's a thing that I know. I'm going to teach you how to do it, but you're only going to make $1.90. So I'm going to teach you another way to make $3,000 per episode or $500 per episode instead of $2.
Absolutely.
Okay, awesome.
And then
That
you can
was
essentially
brilliant.
title it if you know, like, let's just say, for example, you did the survey and you saw that there were a lot of people that all said they were interested in monetizing with the CPM method. You would title it that, monetizing your show, utilizing the CPM method and more. So that you're like, oh, people, I've had 9 out of 12 people tell me that they were interested in that. So give them what it is that they say they want, but then in that, give them what it is that they really need.
I love how you phrase that. I've got a question, a clarification. Now, the listener, they can just rewind. I could listen another time. But to make sure that we've got this down, you said something when you were asking this survey. You said something like this, and I want you to correct me.
Yeah.
What would be the top 3 episodes that you would listen to and need? Or what was the way to phrase that?
I said, what would be the top 3 episodes that you would not miss if I aired them?
If I aired them. That you would not miss if I aired them. Good stuff. Okay, now 4 was focus on the use of the podcast to monetize differently, not like the gurus. And you're talking about a podcast needing to have a business model or else it's just a hobby. You mentioned that a lot of people step over the dollars to pick up the dimes. And let's just make sure that this is clear to our listener today.
Absolutely.
What are they missing here? How are they tripping over the dollars and how do they get them?
Because so many of us are looking for money for our show. The real money to be made is to get money because of your show. Let me give you an example. Let's say that you have a podcast that is teaching business owners how to be productive, right? Every episode is, here's all the different ways that you can be productive, you can be effective, and you can be efficient as a business owner. What if I taught you how to contact the corporation that's on the other side of town? Let's just say Coca-Cola. You live in Atlanta and Coca-Cola is on the other side of town. And I taught you how to pitch your expertise to Coca-Cola to work with their high potential leaders on becoming more productive. So now, instead of that $1.90 for your episode on how to be productive, now instead of even that $3,000 money that you could get for your show, you could now potentially get a $50,000 contract to go in twice for 2 hours to Coca-Cola to teach their leaders how to be productive. So what I'm saying is that look at your expertise in other ways that you can appeal, especially to the mass market. Many times as podcasters, we're only thinking about how do we get money for the show. What I'm saying is that if you have an ecosystem of products and services and partnerships that you build with your show at the foundation, that's how you really elevate your income. And what I recognized, Adam, was because since 2012, 13, I've been landing corporate contracts and corporate sponsors and teaching business owners how to do the same. For the 5 years that I've had a show, it's so much easier to do so because I'm now able to use my show to get my foot in the door with these decision makers, which makes it so much easier than when I only could find them online, when I could only find them hoping that I could grab them for 5 minutes after they spoke at an event.
So I'm going to use myself as an example.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to do it after a break. We'll take a quick break.
Okay.
When we get back, what I want you to do is I want you to do a mini coaching session with me for a fitness company that I have where we read the blood work and we support people by giving them a plan that gets them to optimize their body's hormones so that they can burn fat and build muscle.
Yep.
Okay. My goal for this is to have you coach me in a way that is beneficial to all people that would listen to this show that have a business.
Yep, gotcha.
We'll be right back. Hey, my friend, as you know, this episode is sponsored by my company, GrowYourShow.com. We want you to be able to have the best tools at your disposal without costing you a whole arm and a leg. So right now you can get a free list of vetted equipment that like mics, mixers, webcams, sound treatment, editing software, everything that you need. I created the whole PDF with direct purchase links just to save you time and money, to help it be more convenient for you. So this free PDF will help you skip all the guesswork,
If it's on there, it's vetted and approved by yours truly. And if it's not on there, it's probably not worth the money. So go ahead and get yours at growyourshow.com/PDF. Let's get back into the show.
We're back with Shayna Davis from the influence economy, where she helps people influence their micro niche or the masses so they can make more money in a better way. And we're going to learn how to do that, because when she first was saying you're tripping over dollars to make dimes, my head went into a place where your head probably went. You were probably thinking that it meant somehow that you got a sponsor for your show or you sold your own product or service. And that's what I thought too. But it sounds like she's talking about using your expertise to go to a corporation. I don't know if this is going to be valid for my business model or not. We'll see what Shayna says. I have a company. It's called Optimized LLC, where we read people's blood work. We analyze it. We look at tons of different biomarkers, and then we figure out what they're deficient in, what they have too much of, where their stress hormones or sex hormones or happy hormones are. And we dial it in so that they can be healthier and fitter. Yes, they will get the six pack, but who cares? They will be able to perform better as a business owner. So that's why I'm passionate about this. And I could have a podcast. I don't. I could have a podcast about health and fitness to attract people. I could get a CPM model, which means I could get sponsors for a show. But let me see, how much money could I make if I started talking to corporations and perhaps went and spoke at these corporations for a certain amount of money? Shayna, how would I do that?
Absolutely. Well, I first want to say that there's actually 5 different opportunities. I call this the high 5 model. So these are the types of opportunities that are available for you as a podcast host if you do what it is that I'm getting ready to teach you, Adam. Corporate contracts, corporate sponsors, high paid speaking engagements, major media appearances, and traditional book deals, meaning they pay you to write the book, not you did it yourself, right?
Can we go over those slowly while I take notes and maybe the listener takes notes? I've got corporate contracts for number 1, corporate sponsors for number 2.
Yep.
What's number 3?
High paid speaking engagements.
Okay.
And
what's number 4?
Major media appearances.
And you've been in on TV and stuff like that yourself. Okay. And number 5?
Lucrative book deals.
And you've written, I think, at least 1 book.
I've written 4, but all of them were self-published. I'm talking about when you have a publishing deal where they pay you in advance to write your book.
Okay.
Okay. So the very
this
first
is crazy. I hope that the listener gets a lot of value out of this.
Oh, they're about to listen. If money scares you, log off. If money excites you and you recognize it as a tool for greatness, I'm about to change your life. So the very first thing that you have to do, Adam, is you have to think about your area of expertise beyond your current industry and create what I call a transcendent brand. So think of a transcendent brand like an umbrella. So in your business, Optimize, what it is that you're doing ultimately is you're helping people to optimize their health so that they can optimize their performance. Because when our health is optimized, we perform better at work, we perform better in our business, we perform better in our lives, whatever the thing is, right? Like, I'm not the expert, so I'm making some of this up. So when you think about what it is that you do in broader themes, so right now, you may only be focused on business owners. You may only be focused on moms. You may only be focused on a small niche of people. So when you create an umbrella brand or a transcendent brand, you want to think about your area of expertise in broader themes. Meaning that, like, let's just say, for example, if you only worked with moms in this way to help them lose weight, that's not going to give you the same level of mass market appeal if you focused on optimized leadership or, whatever you could name it that would fit your niche, right? When you do that, it makes you more scalable. So if you think about helping a mom to lose weight because they now understand their blood type or whatever it is that you do, that's specific, but working with leaders in order to optimize their performance as a result of optimizing their health is a much broader and scalable thing. So now you could go, I'm going to give you an example of how you could do all 5 of those things that we just talked about. Number 1, corporate contracts. If you went to name a corporation that's in your city where you live.
There's this big one that I wish that I could remember. Lockheed Martin. I
Okay.
think it's
Lockheed Martin is in
yeah.
the Dallas area as well.
Okay.
So you wanted to go into Lockheed Martin, and let's just say you are really committed to men's health. You know that men are eating like crap. They're not exercising. They're staying up all night, whatever it is that you know about men, right? And if you went to Lockheed Martin, and let's just say you were talking to the head of human resources, and you were having a conversation with her, let's just call her Sarah, and you said, Sarah, hey, my name is Adam. I own this company called Optimize. And what I know is that many of your male leaders, especially at the high executive level, could be performing in their role so much better if they were taking their health more seriously. Because here's what I know. And then you name off your 2 or 3, here's what you know statements about men that are performing at this level. I can actually help them perform better at work. This is going to be important to you because leaders at that level only have so long before they're going to be looking for the next gig. And you, as the organization, want to retain that type of talent. And Sarah's going to be going, yep, I got it. So then you can have a conversation with Sarah of how you can come in and work with, let's just call it 12 of their top performing men that are executives. And then you would go through whatever it is that you go through to teach them how to optimize their health to improve their performance. That's number 1. You could easily get a $50,000, $75,000 contract doing that. Sponsorships. Let's say in your business as Optimize that you had an annual event. Maybe there's a health fair, maybe there's blood work, whatever the things are. Instead of you bootstrapping and paying for that event yourself, like many of your listeners are doing, you could find a corporation that also wanted access to your audience or cared about what it is that you cared about because of the product or service that they offer. And now they will sponsor your event in order to have activation at your event, have access to your audience because you also always have an email list, et cetera, et cetera. Now you haven't had to pay for your event because you've had corporations to sponsor your event. That's number 2. Number 3, a meeting planner may be having a huge conference that is coming to your area that is a good fit for you because now that you've marketed yourself beyond your small niche and you're marketing yourself is how leaders can optimize their performance by optimizing their health, they might pay you $25,000 to come in and do a keynote. That's number 3. Number 4, major media appearances. Now you can have the Today Show. Now you can have local news. Maybe it's National Men's Month if there's a thing, or maybe it's National Men's Health Month or whatever the theme is for the month or for the week. They will now bring you on and now look at how many people have eyeballs on what it is that you're doing because you're now in a major media outlet instead of my podcast, instead of some of the other things that you could do to market your business. Number 5, lucrative book deals. If there is a book publisher that they care about getting books in the hands of more men and more men leaders, they may contact you, or even if they don't, if you go to them and say, hey, here's how it is that I help leaders, they will pay you to write that book because they know they're going to sell so many more of those books because you're appealing to a broader mass market audience than you would have been if you were only serving your business in the way that you are now. So that's how we can use our show because now you can say, I don't know how to get my foot in the door with Lockheed Martin, but guess what? If I can go on LinkedIn and I can find out who the head of talent and development is, I can find out who the head of HR is, I can invite them on my podcast and we can talk about why that's important. And you know what you do with every single guest? Before you press record and after you press record, you chat. After you get done pressing record on that episode, that's when you're like, we should have a conversation about how I can bring this to your organization. That's how you stop stepping over dollars in order to get to dimes as a result of your podcast. No more monkeying around with selling your journals and all this other crap. That I'm not saying that you can't do those things. I'm just saying that that's not going to create life-changing income. That's not going to shape an industry, and that's not going to leave a legacy. And many people who are hosting a show and who are running businesses, those are the things that they care about.
Yeah. I'm enjoying this eye-opening information.
Yeah.
I do have some question or possibly pushback.
Okay.
I want to understand how likely is some of this stuff. We've
Well, I've
got,
been doing it for
let's
15 years.
pretend we have 6,000 people that listen to the show.
Mhm.
More than half of them already have a podcast and have a business and are an expert. And slightly less than half are really wanting to have a successful podcast to be able to sell a product or a service. Let's pretend that for a second. How likely with these 6,000 people are they going to get a lucrative book deal with a book publisher? How likely are they going to be able to get on TV, national media, CBS, NBC, Today's Show? How likely are they going to be paid $25K to get in front of people?
What
Is
you're
it
missing,
hard?
what you're missing is because you're still focused on the podcast only. These organizations don't care as much about the number of listeners. What I want everyone to
Oh no,
hear and what
no,
I want you to hear
I'm.
is that this is about the brand
We
that
have a
you're building.
miscommunication. Let's make sure we're on the same page. Out of the people that are listening to this show right now to get value from you,
Mhm.
how likely are they to get the book publishing and other stuff? Well, I'm not talking about a number of their listeners. I'm just talking about
If the number, if your listeners that are listening today recognize that having a business is the real way to monetize their show, then what I'm going to say to them is that you should be focused on having a business model with your podcast at the core. Meaning, my podcast is about how you grow your influence. My business is also about how you grow your influence. When you're looking at why would someone give you a book deal? Why would someone give you a contract? Why would someone give you any of those things? It's because they now see that you have an entire ecosystem. You have a podcast, you have a business. Inside of your business, you have products, you have services, because that's what, when I said you have to think about yourself like in a broader scope than just a host, you just look at the podcast as a tool, the business is a tool to be able to position yourself to be able to get these types of opportunities. So if someone is listening to the show and they only have a podcast and they don't also have a business that is linked to the podcast, then yeah, you're not going to be able to get any of those. You're going to be stuck in your CPMs and your ads and your merchandise, and you can do excellent with that. What I'm saying is that if you're already impacting people with your message and your expertise in your show, hopefully you're impacting people through the same area of messaging and expertise in your business, because now that you have this entire ecosystem, that's what makes you attractive to these 5 areas that we talked about.
Great. And what I'm looking for is I've got somebody who's listening who is your perfect ideal avatar. And they are thinking to themselves, other people can get a lucrative book deal. Other people can be on major media.
Yeah.
Other people could get 25K just to speak. And they don't identify it. They say, that's not me. That's why I'm asking, what is the likeliness for our listener to do
I thought the
these
same way.
things?
I thought the same way until I worked with a coach that taught me how to land those opportunities. And I realized that it was about how I positioned myself and how I packaged what it was that I did. Most of us, since we've never really been taught how to go after these type of opportunities, our confidence immediately is in the ground. We automatically think it's probably not for us because we don't know what it consists of. But once I learned how to properly position myself, so what I talked to you about is you would no longer be saying, I only service this small area or arena of my umbrella. If you begin to position yourself as, I'm someone that helps leaders to optimize their performance by optimizing their health, that is the number one shift in being able to get these opportunities, because now you're properly positioned. If you only talk about what you do in the small way that you currently serve your arena, they're not going to recognize that you actually are positioned for these type of opportunities. And so I thought the exact same way. Like, I could see how other people would be able to do that, but how in the world would I be able to do that? And just like anything else, if you do a few things right, if you properly position yourself and you properly pitch yourself, meaning go back to the language, rewind the language that I used with Adam, with Sarah at Lockheed Martin. I focused on what it is that I know that Sarah cares about for her leaders. So if you can position yourself well, listener, if you can pitch yourself well, you absolutely can get this. And the reason why I know that is because I've successfully done it for myself for over 12 years. And I've also taught thousands of other people who thought the exact same thing how to do this.
And one of my favorite things that you shared about the Lockheed Martin, which you just mentioned, but it's so critical. When we go and pitch ourselves, a lot of us think about ourselves.
Yeah.
We're potentially a little self-conscious. We're potentially a little, I have to show how good I am.
Yeah.
And your pitch felt reverse from that. Your pitch felt like it wasn't really about you.
Yeah.
It was about what they needed and just how you were the solution to that. So your language was all about them. Your language was about their needs. Your language is about what's they're holding them back. And I think that's why when in this theoretical thing with Sarah, why we were able to get her to say to you, hey, that sounds great. That's going to make us so much money. We'll give you 75 grand or whatever the number is.
Yeah. These decision makers have things that they have to accomplish. You know, when we're selling to individual consumers, it's a lot easier because we only have ourselves to take into consideration. These decision makers have goals that they have to reach inside of their organization. They have metrics that they're being measured against. And the last thing that they want to do is make a career limiting move by bringing somebody in that's going to make them look bad. So you have to know what it is that your decision maker is looking to accomplish. And in the example that we talked about, Sarah cares about the performance of her leaders because corporations know that every time that they lose someone, that it takes so much money to find somebody else to replace them and to get them up to speed that they would be willing to spend the money to get you to help with their retention so that they don't have to spend the money trying to replace that person. And so if you're talking to her about what it is that you know she needs to do, you automatically have her attention instead of, you notice I didn't start with, and we do blood work and we've got machines and we're fast and we're great, because it's not about you yet.
Yeah. So brilliant. I love that. Really, really good stuff. We're coming up on our 20-minute mark.
Okay, great.
The listeners like looking down. Wait, this is a little longer than 20. I appreciate you. I do want to share something with the listener. The next episode is going to be another great episode. We will keep them coming. So you don't even have to log out. We will see you on the very next episode. And by the way, with Shayna, being able to connect with her, checking out her podcast, her website, any social media that she wanted you to have, you can just scroll down right now. In the show notes is a link to everything Shayna Davis, and you can connect with her. I'll see you on the next episode.
Oh, hey, because 3 of my clients came to me recently looking to find a way to have their podcast make them money instead of cost them money. We put together a resource for some of our clients, and I want to give it to you as well. It's something that did actually seem to help because one of them is now making $2,600 a month. Another one's $4,500 a month. And the third is making between $5,000 and $10,000 each month. And so it's been a resource that's been incredibly valuable to them. It's our sponsor sheet template. It's a template of a sponsor sheet, and it gives you something that you can hand to potential sponsors and hopefully also be making $2,600, $4,500, or between $5,000 and $10,000 regularly each month with your podcast. So this has been a contributing factor to helping all 3 of those clients turn their podcast into an additional income stream for them. And the way that you can find it is just going to our website, growyourshow.com, but put in /templates, growyourshow.com/templates. And then you can actually download that template and others that could be valuable to your podcasting experience. I'll see you on the next episode.